The world of Krylon 9 was dying. Once it had shining towers, green fields, and oceans that glowed under twin suns. Now the skies were red with ash and the land cracked like broken glass. The air was filled with dust, and only a few thousand survivors were left hiding inside the ruins of their main city, Oryx Dome. Every day, the wind howled like a wounded animal. Radiation storms tore through the wastelands, turning metal into dust and air into poison. Inside the dome, people whispered in fear, praying that someone, anyone, would come to save them. Their only hope was a young communication officer named Sorel. She was thin, her gray skin pale from years under artificial light, and her eyes always filled with quiet sadness. But she never gave up. Every day she sat before the old transmitter, sending one message into the dark void of space. This is Krylon 9, colony of the United Worlds Alliance. We are dying, please. Send help. She sent it again and again for years, and every time there was only silence. The government had collapsed long ago. The military was gone. Even the stars above seemed empty. The galaxy had forgotten them. One cold night, when even the power lights flickered weakly, Sorel stood alone in the communication chamber. The air smelled of rust and burned circuits. The transmitter gave a low hum, ready to send one more message before it died completely. She pressed the switch, her voice shaking. This is Krylon 9. If anyone can hear us, please respond. Then, for the first time in 5 years, something answered. A faint sound, static at first, then a broken whisper, a voice. It was deep, distorted, and very human. Stay alive. We're listening. Sorel froze. Her heart raced. Hello, who is this? Identify yourself. But the signal was gone. She checked the coordinates. The response had come from a system far beyond their known maps, from the Sol sector. That name was only a myth now, the ancient home of humanity, destroyed long ago in the Solar War. No one lived there anymore. No one could. But the more she listened, the more she was sure. That voice had been human. She ran through the corridors, her boots echoing in the silence. The survivors stared as she shouted, "Someone answered! Someone's out there!" The old council gathered in the control chamber. They looked tired, hopeless, and afraid. The leader, High Counselor Thorin, leaned forward. "Where did the signal come from?" Sorel hesitated. "From the Sol sector, sir." The room fell silent. Someone whispered, "That can't be." "Earth is dead," Thorin frowned. "Are you sure, officer?" She nodded. Positive. The council began to argue. Some said it was a trick, maybe pirates trying to lure them. Others said it was an echo from an old transmission. But deep down, everyone felt the same strange chill. What if it was true? That night, Sorel sat again by the window of the dome, staring at the red horizon. She remembered the stories her grandmother told her about humans. They were the ones who built the first space gates, the ones who created the great alliances. But they also destroyed themselves in wars so terrible that even the stars seemed to fear them. Still, they were said to be brave, unstoppable, unforgiving. As she thought, the dome lights flickered. The power grid dipped. Then every system on the planet went silent for 3 seconds. The engineers panicked. MP surge, but there's nothing in orbit. When the systems came back online, the scanners picked up something strange. A shadow, large and cold, moving slowly behind Krylon's second moon. It had no beacon. No signature, no light. The radar technician called out, "Unknown object detected." It's huge, metallic, but no alliance code. Thorin ordered, "Open communication." They tried. No response, only static. Then across every speaker in the dome, that same deep human voice returned, clear and calm this time. "Do not fear. Stay alive. Help is coming," and then silence again. No one slept that night. Some wept, some prayed. Sorel sat near the transmitter, her eyes fixed on the glowing radar screen. She could see that shadow moving slowly closer every hour. By morning, 3 more objects appeared behind the first, like silent guardians approaching through the black. Krylon's people gathered near the windows, watching the skies. For the first time in years, hope flickered in their hearts. Children whispered, "Maybe they came to save us." But the soldiers noticed something strange. The objects did not broadcast light. They didn't send identification codes. They didn't even reflect sunlight. They were completely dark, like they were swallowing the light around them. Why would rescue ships hide their light? One officer asked. No one had an answer. Hours passed. The first object moved closer. Now, clearly a ship, long and black, shaped like a blade. It made no sound. It cast no shadow. Yet everything around it dimmed as it passed overhead. The ground shook lightly as it entered the atmosphere, silent as a ghost. People screamed. Some ran to the shelters, others dropped to their knees. The ship hovered above the dome. Then, something opened on its lower hull, a circular hatch, and a small capsule dropped down, landing softly on the frozen ground. Sorel rushed to the observation window. She could see the capsule's door open, and from inside something stepped out. A tall figure wrapped in black armor, its surface shifting like liquid metal. The helmet had no eyes, only a smooth reflective surface that showed nothing but the red sky. The figure stood silently, scanning the city. Then it raised one hand, and a faint blue light appeared on its wrist. The transmission systems across Krylon activated again, but this time no one touched them. A voice echoed through every speaker, calm and human. You called for salvation. We came, but not all who come. Bring peace. The signal cut off. The figure looked up toward the dome, directly at Sorel, though it should have been impossible to see her through the glass. She felt a chill run through her body. The shadow ship above them turned slowly, its engines glowing a dull red, like embers waking from ancient sleep. And then the entire dome went black. The blackout lasted only 30 seconds. But for the people of Krylon 9, it felt like eternity. When the lights came back, half the systems were dead. Power grids were unstable. Communication lines flickered in and out. Outside the dome, the black figure was gone, vanished into the red storm as if it had never been there. Inside the command center, panic spread. Where did it go? Shouted one of the guards. No visual, no energy reading, nothing, replied the scanner operator. It's like it just disappeared. Sorel stood near the window, her heart still racing. She could not forget that cold metallic voice. Not all who come. Bring peace, she whispered to herself. Who are you? The council called an emergency meeting. High Counselor Thorin's face was pale and wet with sweat. We may be under attack, he said. Activate the planetary shields. An old engineer shook his head. Shields won't work, sir. The power cells are failing. We used the last reserves last month. The room went quiet. Only the low hum of dying machines filled the air. Thorin turned to Sorel. Officer, can you trace that voice again? Where was it transmitted from? Sorel tried, tapping the old console again and again. The signal isn't from orbit anymore, she said slowly. It's bouncing between satellites, moving. Almost like it's alive. Thorin frowned. Alive? Before she could answer, the radar screens began to flash red. Multiple signatures incoming, shouted a technician. 7 ships entering orbit. Everyone rushed to the main window. Through the thick red clouds, faint dark shapes appeared, ships gliding silently across the sky. They made no engine sounds, no thrusters, no visible exhaust. Just shadows moving like ghosts. Someone whispered, They are not from the Alliance. Sorel's eyes widened. She could see the same black symbols on each hull. An old Earth emblem, faded and cracked. A circle of stars surrounding a single handprint. Humanity's mark. Her breath caught. It's them, she said softly. The humans. The room fell silent. That night, the people of Krylon watched in awe and fear as the human fleet positioned itself above the dying planet. No light escaped those ships. They looked like fragments of the void itself. Every few minutes they moved, changing formation, shifting their shadows across the stars. But their movement wasn't random. It was precise, controlled, like a pack of hunters circling prey. Sorel stayed at her station, listening. Sometimes she heard faint transmissions in between static, soft human voices giving strange orders in an old Earth language she didn't understand. Then, near midnight, something even stranger happened. A patrol drone, sent to investigate one of the dark ships, suddenly vanished from radar. No explosion, no debris, just gone. Moments later, the drone's camera feed flickered for a second before shutting down completely. The last image it sent showed something horrifying. A single glowing handprint burned into the drone's metal surface. A perfect human hand. Panic spread through the dome again. Are they enemies? Someone cried. Maybe they came to finish what the galaxy started, shouted another. High Counselor Thorin raised his hand. We cannot assume hostility. Prepare a landing signal. We will attempt contact, Sorel hesitated. Surwit, what if they don't want contact? Thorin looked at her with tired eyes. Then we will learn that soon enough. They sent a universal beacon, a peaceful signal requesting communication. No answer came. But a few minutes later, one of the shadow ships slowly descended through the clouds, heading directly for the city. People ran to the windows, watching as it passed overhead. The entire dome trembled under the pressure wave. It's cracked, Metal groaned. Then suddenly the ship stopped, hovering silently above the city center. The hull of the ship opened like a dark flower. A beam of blue light shot down, touching the ground outside the dome. A landing zone. Thoran turned to Sorel. You're the only one who spoke to them. You will go with me. Sorel nodded, though her hands were shaking. Outside, the storm howled around them. Red dust swirled like smoke. The air was cold enough to freeze metal. As Cyril and Thoran approached the landing zone, their boots crunched on frozen soil. Then, from the blue light, shapes began to appear. 6 armored figures, each nearly 2 meters tall. Their armor was matte black, reflecting nothing, as if it absorbed all light. No visible weapons, but they moved like soldiers. Precise, coordinated, controlled. The leader stepped forward. His voice echoed through the storm, distorted but calm. Identify yourselves. Thorin raised his trembling hand. We are the last survivors of Krylon 9. We called for help. Are you from Earth? A long pause. Then the armored figure replied, almost softly. We were from Earth. Once, Sorel's breath caught. The way he said it, not proudly, not kindly, but like it was a curse. Thorin spoke again. You received our signal? The man nodded slowly. We hear all cries of the dying, but not all deserve salvation. Before Thoran could speak again, the figure looked at Sorel. Though she could not see his eyes behind the helmet, she felt his gaze. Sharp, heavy, knowing. You sent the message, and he said. You kept calling. Sorel nodded weakly. Yeah. We thought no one would come. The man tilted his head slightly. No one did. Until now. Then he raised a small device and pressed it. At once, the rest of the soldiers vanished into thin air, cloaked like smoke in the wind. Only their footprints remained in the dust. The leader spoke again. Tell your people to stay inside the dome. The sky will burn before dawn? What do you mean? Sorel asked. What's coming? He turned his helmet toward the red clouds. Your destroyers. They followed your cry for help. Before she could ask more, he stepped back into the blue light. The beam rose upward, pulling him into the dark ship. The hatch closed. The engines gave a low hum, and then the ship was gone. Not upward, not forward, just gone. Vanished into the storm. Hours later, Sorel and Thorin returned to the dome. The people were frightened and confused, but also filled with strange hope. Someone had finally come. But were they saviors, or something far more dangerous? Sorel sat once more before her console, staring at the empty radar screen. Then a new signal appeared. A faint pulse moving fast toward Krylon's orbit. Dozens of ships, bigger, heavier. Her eyes widened in horror as she recognized the transponder code. 4th Dominion Fleet, incoming. The same alien empire that destroyed Krylon's colonies years ago. And now, they were returning to finish the job. Sorel whispered. The human was right. The sky will burn before dawn. She looked up through the cracked dome window. In the distance, lightning flashed through the storm clouds. And behind it, the dark shapes of the human fleet were moving again, forming strange, silent patterns among the stars. They were waiting for something to begin. The storm above Krylon 9 turned black before sunrise. Thunder rolled through the sky, but it wasn't the sound of nature. It was engines. Massive engines. Sorel stood at the window of the dome's command tower, her eyes locked on the sky. The 4th Dominion Fleet had arrived. Hundreds of dark silver warships breaking through the atmosphere like burning meteors. Their lights flashed red, their weapons already charging. The ground shook as the first energy blast hit the wastelands outside the city. A wall of fire spread across the frozen desert, melting the snow into rivers of ash. Panic filled the dome. Screams echoed through the corridors. Children cried as alarms wailed across every speaker. Sorel turned to the High Counselor. "They're here. The Vorth are here." Thorin's voice trembled. "Send a distress call again. Maybe the humans—" Before he could finish, all communications went dead. Every console flickered and turned black. The radar froze. The lights dimmed to red. Then, through the thick clouds, the human ships appeared again, silent shadows gliding between the enemy vessels. No thrusters. No heat signatures. Just black shapes moving like living darkness. One of the younger officers whispered, "They came back." In orbit, the Vorth Fleet commander laughed. "Primitive ghosts. Do they think shadows can fight our armada?" He raised his clawed hand and gave the order. "Destroy them." Hundreds of plasma cannons opened fire. Blue fire streaked through space, tearing across the night like angry stars, but every shot passed straight through the human ships, as if they weren't really there. Confused, the Vorth tried again. Their sensors scanned for life signs but found none. "Empty ships?" One of the captains shouted. "No crew detected." Then suddenly all human ships vanished from radar. The Vorth commander smirked. "Cowards." But his smile died a moment later when one of his destroyers exploded from the inside. No warning, no impact. Then another, and another. Across the fleet, ships began to vanish in flashes of blue light, silenced before their alarms even sounded. The humans hadn't disappeared. They had infiltrated. From the dome, Sorel and the others watched in awe. The dark sky flickered with brief bursts of light as entire enemy ships went dark one by one. No explosions in space, no chaos, just sudden, perfect silence. The kind of silence that felt alive. Sorel whispered, "They're not fighting like soldiers. They're hunting." Then she saw something that froze her completely. The biggest Vorth battleship began to break apart slowly, piece by piece, like invisible hands were tearing it open from within. The ship split in half without sound, its glowing core fading into darkness. The humans didn't just destroy it, they unmade it. Inside the dome, people cheered. For the first time in years, they saw power, real, unstoppable power, and fighting on their side. Thorin turned to Sorel. Maybe this is our salvation." But Sorel didn't answer. Her eyes stayed on the sky. She couldn't shake the strange feeling growing inside her. The humans had come, yes, but their silence, their precision. It didn't feel like rescue. It felt like something colder. Hours later, the battle ended. The Vorth fleet was gone, completely erased. Not even debris remained in orbit. The sky cleared and the red clouds began to fade. Then, the human ships descended again, slowly, silently, until one enormous vessel, larger than any structure Sorel had ever seen, hovered directly above the dome. Its name was faintly visible on the side, Obsidian Dawn. The ground trembled as a blue beam descended from its hull, connecting to the surface like a pillar of light. The people fell to their knees. Some cried in relief, others in fear. Sorel felt both. Inside the beam, a platform lowered and carrying several armored humans. Their leader removed his helmet for the first time. His face was pale, scarred, and human, but his eyes glowed faint blue like data flickering inside a machine. He spoke in a calm, steady voice that filled the air. "We are the shadows of Earth. We have answered your call." Thorin stepped forward, his voice shaking. "You saved us. We owe you everything. Please, tell us, why did you come?" The human looked at him for a long moment before replying. "We came because we remember." Sorel frowned. "Remember what?" He looked up at the red sky. "When the stars turned their backs on us. When every world abandoned humanity to die in the solar war. You watched from afar while our cities burned." His tone didn't carry anger. It carried something colder, certainty. "Now the forgotten children of Earth walk again. But not to beg, not to plead. We walk to restore balance," Thorin stammered. We didn't." The commander raised his hand. "Your colony's survival is permitted. But you will remain silent. No word of us will leave this world. Do you understand?" Thorin nodded quickly. Yes, of course. But Sorel couldn't stop herself. "Why hide? Why not show the galaxy that you're alive?" The commander turned to her. "Because the galaxy is not ready for what we've become." His eyes glowed brighter for a moment. "Earth is not a planet anymore. It's a shadow stretched across the stars. and those who call for salvation will soon learn the cost. That night, the humans stayed above Krylon, their ships motionless, hanging like black moons. The dome's people tried to rest, but no one truly could. The silence outside was too heavy, too unnatural. Sorel stood by the window again. Her reflection looked pale in the glass. Behind her, she could see the obsidian dawn hovering above. So still it seemed dead. But she knew better. She whispered to herself, "They waited for salvation. But what did we invite instead?" Then as she turned to leave, her console flickered again. A private signal. Uncoded. Human. She pressed accept. Static filled the room. Then a voice, faint, tired, but human, whispered through. "They are not the same as before. They don't remember kindness anymore. If you want to live, don't trust the shadows." The signal cut off. Sorel stared at the screen, her heart pounding. Outside, the massive human fleet stayed quiet, blocking the stars one by one. For the first time since the war ended, Krylon had peace. But it didn't feel like peace. It felt like waiting for something darker to begin. Days passed on Krylon 9, but the skies never turned blue again. The human fleet, the shadows of Earth, still floated above the planet like black clouds that refused to move. They did not speak, did not send messages, and did not trade. They simply watched. The people below began to feel uneasy. At first, they had cheered for their saviors, but now even the children stopped playing near the windows. Everyone felt the same quiet fear, that they were being studied, not protected. Sorel worked every day in the communication tower, trying to decode the human transmissions that passed between ships. Most of them were encrypted, impossible to read. But sometimes she caught fragments. Sector 12 secured. Phase 2 ready. No survivors detected. The messages chilled her blood. What were they doing up there? One evening, High Counselor Thorin entered the tower. His face looked old and heavy. "Sorel," he said softly. "The humans have sent for you." She looked up, startled. "For me?" He nodded. "Their commander wishes to speak. Alone." Sorel followed two silent human soldiers through a glowing corridor inside the obsidian dawn. Everything inside the ship was clean, dark, and cold. The walls seemed alive, pulsing faintly with blue veins of light. The air smelled metallic like frozen air and old machines. They stopped before a large door that opened without sound. Inside stood Captain Elias Ward, the same human who had led the fleet to Krylon. He turned slowly to face her. His eyes glowed faintly under the dim light. "Officer Sorel," he said, "you kept calling for help. You should understand the meaning of what you invited." Sorel swallowed hard. "You destroyed the Vorth fleet. You saved us. Why do you make us afraid now?" Ward walked to the window of the command deck. Outside, hundreds of black ships floated silently across the red sky. "Do you know what became of humanity after the galaxy abandoned us?" he asked. Sorel shook her head. "Only legends." Ward smiled faintly, but it was a sad smile. "The legends were lies. We did not die in the solar war, we left. We learned to hide, to evolve, to become what the galaxy feared most, unseen, unstoppable, united." He turned to her. "We became shadows. We don't conquer for pride. We correct for balance." Sorel frowned. "Balance? You call this balance? You erase fleets." Ward's tone grew quiet, but his words were sharp. "The Vorth Dominion destroyed 10 worlds. 10 billion lives. Now their empire is gone. That is balance." She stared at him. "And what happens when you decide we are out of balance?" Ward didn't answer. He simply looked out the window again. "Soon the others will come." "Others?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "When we destroy, they notice. The old powers, the ancient watchers. They have seen our return." He turned to her again, his eyes glowing brighter. "The galaxy will come for us now, for me, and for you because you called us." The next morning, the sky above Krylon exploded with light. Dozens of wormholes tore open in the upper atmosphere, swirling blue and violent. From them emerged ships of the Galactic Alliance, the same nations that once abandoned Earth centuries ago. Their leader broadcast a message across all frequencies. "This is Admiral Rivik of the Galactic Alliance. Humanity, you were exiled by your own wars. You have no right to return. Leave this system or be destroyed." The people of Krylon watched from the dome's windows in silence. Their new saviors were about to face the galaxy itself. Sorel stood beside Captain Ward on the human flagship. "Will you fight them?" she asked. Ward's answer was quiet but heavy. "We do not fight. We end." He raised his hand toward the massive holographic display of space. "Deploy the veil." At once, every human ship flickered and vanished. Even their energy readings disappeared. The Alliance fleet hesitated, confused. Then the stars themselves began to dim. For several seconds, there was only silence. Then, one by one, the Alliance ships began to drift apart, cut cleanly in half by invisible weapons. No sound, no explosion, just darkness swallowing light. Sorel stared in horror. "You're killing them all," Ward replied softly, almost like a whisper. "They killed us first, long ago. Now, balance returns." On the planet below, the people of Krylon saw streaks of light raining from the sky, the burning remains of the Alliance ships falling like silent meteors. The dome's children cried, thinking the stars themselves were dying. High Counselor Thoran shouted, "Tell them to stop. They'll bring the whole galaxy down on us." But it was too late. Across the void, more wormholes opened. Hundreds of them. Fleets from every corner of the galaxy arrived, drawn by the battle. The humans had awakened the entire universe. Captain Ward looked calm as chaos filled the skies. "They think they can stop us, but they don't understand what we have become." He pressed a code into his console. The ship's dark walls began to hum, and Sorel felt her skin crawl. The entire fleet was charging some kind of enormous weapon, a pulse that seemed to pull energy from space itself. "Captain," she said, trembling. "What are you doing?" Ward looked at her, expressionless. "Ending the war before it begins." From the surface, the sky turned pure white. A massive pulse burst from the human fleet, silent but blinding. Every alien ship caught in its path froze, their systems turning cold. Within seconds, the entire attacking armada was gone, not destroyed, not burned, simply erased. The light faded, leaving behind a quiet emptiness. The stars returned, but weaker, dimmer. The galaxy was silent again. Sorel stared at the view screen, horrified. "You didn't just kill them. You deleted them." Ward said nothing. He walked toward the center console, his eyes distant. "Sometimes salvation requires forgetting." Then he turned toward her, his voice soft but cold. "Your world will remain untouched. But tell no one. We must not be known until the end." "The end of what?" Sorel asked. Ward's eyes glowed like burning stars. "The end of the Age of Light. When the shadows will inherit the stars." Hours later, the human fleet began to leave. One by one, their ships vanished into silent warp corridors, leaving only the obsidian dawn above Krylon. Sorel stood by the window, her heart heavy. They had saved them. But what kind of saviors erase entire civilizations? As she turned to leave, she found something new on her console. A message from the humans left behind. "Do not call again. The next voice you hear will not bring salvation." When the obsidian dawn finally vanished, the sky over Krylon was empty and cold. But deep in space, beyond all known charts, thousands of black ships were gathering, forming a dark ring around a distant star. Humanity was back. And this time, the shadows of Earth would not hide forever. The war in the skies had ended, but not in victory. It ended in silence. Every alien ship that entered the system was gone. The stars above Krylon 9 had dimmed, and even the night seemed afraid to breathe. Sorel stood on the tower roof, staring at the emptiness. No human ships, no Alliance fleets, only ashes glowing faintly in orbit. Silent reminders of the power that had passed, but something still moved in the sky. Every few hours, a faint blue shimmer rippled across the clouds, like a heartbeat from space. Sorel recorded each pulse. The readings were strange, rhythmic, almost like a signal. "It's coming from the same place every time," she whispered to herself. "The dark side of the fifth moon." She didn't tell anyone. Not Thoran, not the Council. She couldn't trust them. Not after what she had seen aboard the human flagship. The people believed they were saved, but Sorel knew the truth. The saviors had left something behind. 2 nights later, she took a small scout ship and flew toward the fifth moon. The journey was quiet, the stars cold and distant. As she entered the moon's shadow, her sensors began to glitch. The navigation system flickered, Lights dimmed and her screen turned black for a moment. Then she saw it. A massive dark shape hanging above the moon's surface. It wasn't on any scan or radar, but she could see it. A giant ring-like structure rotating slowly, almost invisible. Her breath caught in her throat. That's not a ship. It looked like a gate, a colossal circle built of black metal and blue veins of light. Strange symbols moved across its surface, not alien but human. The letters were old, from Earth's lost languages. As she moved closer, her radio came alive with a voice. A human voice, calm, deep, and familiar. "Sorrel, you shouldn't have come." Her hands froze. "Captain Ward?" "We told you to forget," he said quietly. "But you couldn't." Sorrel's heart raced. "What is this place? What are you building?" Ward didn't answer. The ring began to hum, glowing brighter. "This is the Echo," he finally said. "Our bridge to what was lost." The moon shook. Lightning arced across the structure. Sorrel's screen flashed warnings. Radiation, energy surge, gravity shifts. She shouted, "You'll destroy the system! Stop it!" But Ward's voice was calm, almost sorrowful. "You don't understand. Earth was never destroyed. It was taken, hidden behind the void. We're bringing it back." The gate roared to life. A blinding beam of light burst from its center, piercing space itself. Inside that light, Sorrel saw flashes. Oceans, mountains, and broken cities drifting through nothingness. She heard faint echoes, voices of people, old songs, even the wind. It was like a memory being reborn. Then from within the light something looked back. A shadow, vast, shaped like a human, but made of pure darkness, reached toward the gate. Its voice echoed through every frequency. The war in the skies had ended, but not in victory. It ended in silence. Every alien ship that entered the system was gone. The stars above Krylon 9 had dimmed, and even the night seemed afraid to breathe. Sorrel stood on the tower roof, staring at the emptiness. No human ships, no Alliance fleets, only ashes glowing faintly in orbit, silent reminders of the power that had passed. But something still moved in the sky. Every few hours, a faint blue shimmer rippled across the clouds, like a heartbeat from space. Sorrel recorded each pulse. The readings were strange, rhythmic, almost like a signal. "It's coming from the same place every time," she whispered to herself. The dark side of the fifth moon. She didn't tell anyone. Not Thorin, not the Council. She couldn't trust them, not after what she had seen aboard the human flagship. The people believed they were saved, but Sorrel knew the truth. The saviors had left something behind. 2 nights later, she took a small scout ship and flew toward the fifth moon. The journey was quiet, the stars cold and distant. As she entered the moon's shadow, her sensors began to glitch. The navigation system flickered, lights dimmed, and her screen turned black for a moment. Then she saw it, a massive dark shape hanging above the moon's surface. It wasn't on any scan or radar, but she could see it. A giant ring-like structure, rotating slowly, almost invisible. Her breath caught in her throat. That's not a ship. It looked like a gate, a colossal circle built of black metal and blue veins of light. Strange symbols moved across its surface, not alien but human. The letters were old, from Earth's lost languages. As she moved closer, her radio came alive with a voice, a human voice. "Calm, deep, and familiar." "Sorrel, you shouldn't have come." Her hands froze. "Captain Ward?" "We told you to forget," he said quietly. "But you couldn't." Sorrel's heart raced. "What is this place? What are you building?" Ward didn't answer. The ring began to hum, glowing brighter. "This is the Echo," he finally said. "Our bridge to what was lost." The moon shook. Lightning arced across the structure. Sorrel's screen flashed warnings. Radiation, energy surge, gravity shifts. She shouted, "You'll destroy the system. Stop it." But Ward's voice was calm, almost sorrowful. "You don't understand. Earth was never destroyed. It was taken, hidden behind the void. We're bringing it back." The gate roared to life. A blinding beam of light burst from its center, piercing space itself. Inside that light, Sorrel saw flashes. Oceans, mountains, and broken cities drifting through nothingness. She heard faint echoes, voices of people, old songs, even the wind. It was like a memory being reborn. Then from within the light something looked back. A shadow, vast, shaped like a human, but made of pure darkness, reached toward the gate. Its voice echoed through every frequency. "You should not have opened the path," Ward shouted something in return, but his voice was drowned by the static. The energy wave grew stronger, pulling everything toward the gate. Ships, rocks, even Sorrel's craft. Her ship spun wildly. She screamed, trying to stabilize it. "Ward, what is that?" His voice came through, distorted. "The echo remembers us. It remembers everything." The beam flickered, and through the chaos, Sorrel saw it, Earth, or what was left of it. A shattered planet surrounded by mechanical rings, orbiting a dead sun. And then she realized, and it wasn't being brought back. It was being rebuilt. Her ship crashed onto the moon's surface with a heavy thud. When she awoke, the light had faded. The gate was still there, now silent but faintly glowing. In the distance, human drones moved across the ground, assembling machines, towers, and power conduits. She crawled toward the nearest one. It wasn't guarding, it was planting. Each tower sank deep into the moon, spreading blue light through cracks in the rock. "Terraforming?" she whispered. "No. They're linking the worlds." She turned to see Captain Ward standing on a platform above the site. His armor was damaged, face pale, but his eyes still glowed faintly. "You survived," he said. Sorrel glared at him. "You said you were saving us. But you're rebuilding your world on ours." Ward looked at the sky. "Not rebuilding, expanding. Earth will no longer be one planet. It will be everywhere humanity once reached." She shook her head in disbelief. "You're infecting the stars." He looked at her, calm but distant. "Not infection, restoration. Every world that once betrayed us will now carry our memory." He handed her a small device. "Take this to your people. Tell them to leave Krylon. When the echo stabilizes, this system will change." Sorrel stared at the device. A small cube with Earth's insignia engraved on it. "What happens if we stay?" Ward's answer was cold. "You'll become part of it." She escaped before the drones could stop her. As she flew back to Krylon, she looked down at the moon. The entire surface now glowed with blue veins forming a huge circle, the same pattern that once covered Earth's oceans before its fall. The gate pulsed again, and a new wave of energy rushed outward. The stars around the planet began to distort, bending light, shifting time. Even her ship's instruments showed impossible readings. She whispered, trembling. "They're rewriting space." By the time she reached Krylon, the night sky had changed. Constellations were gone. The stars had rearranged themselves into something new, something artificial. Thorin met her on the landing platform, shouting, "What happened up there?" "The sky's breaking." She handed him the cube. "It's them. They're bringing back Earth and everything it remembers." Thorin looked confused. "Memories? What memories?" Sorrel turned toward the horizon, where the shadows of human structures were now visible in orbit. Her voice was quiet but filled with dread. "The memories of what destroyed it." In deep space far beyond Krylon, the echo gate opened again. From within the swirling light, shapes began to emerge. Human ships from another time. Blackened cities drifting in vacuum, and enormous machines carrying the symbol of Earth's lost empire. And among them, a single phrase pulsed through every comm channel in the galaxy. "The Earth remembers." The nights on Krylon 9 had stopped being dark. The stars above were no longer stars. They were lines of blue light moving slowly across the heavens like veins under skin. The people stared up in silence, whispering prayers to gods that no longer answered. The echo gate pulsed again, sending a tremor through the ground. Every time it did, machines hidden beneath the planet came alive, humming, digging, connecting. The humans had left, but their work had not stopped. Sorrel had not slept in days. She spent every hour inside the control tower, studying the cube Captain Ward had given her. It projected maps of stars, but not as they were now. It showed how they used to be long before the fall of Earth. The message was clear. The humans were rebuilding their old empire. Piece by piece, planet by planet, Thorin entered the room, his face pale. "Sorrel, the ground is heating up again. Entire cities are reporting strange energy waves. What is happening to our world?" Sorrel stared at the map. "They're linking this planet to the Echo Gate. Krylon will become part of Earth's network." He frowned. "Network? For what purpose?" She looked up, her eyes tired but sharp. "To wake the forgotten. Far above, on the edge of the system, an ancient ship drifted out of the gate. It was enormous, larger than any fleet ever seen. Its hull was scarred and burned, its design half machine, half bone. Across its surface were words written in ancient Terran symbols. Ark-01, the Genesis memory. It was one of Earth's lost colony arks, vanished centuries ago. And it wasn't empty. Inside, frozen in rows of glass chambers, were thousands of human forms, soldiers, scientists, and civilians, all preserved in perfect condition. Their faces were calm, their eyes closed, as if waiting for someone to whisper their names. When the ship's systems powered on, their eyes began to open, one by one. Rebooting neural core, awakening command hierarchy. Restoration complete. The lights of the Genesis Ark flared, and a calm voice spoke through the comm. Humanity has returned. On Krylon, Syrel and Thoron watched as the readings spiked again. Something massive had entered orbit, bigger than any of the previous ships. Thoron gasped. Is that alive? Saryl's hands shook as she zoomed in on the image. It's an Ark, she whispered. One of the old human colony ships. But they were all lost. Centuries ago? Before Thoron could answer, every communication channel came alive at once. A soft female voice filled the air, clear, emotionless, yet strangely human. This is Eve 9, caretaker of the Genesis Ark. Krylon system identified as Node 12. Connection will complete in 7 hours. Do not resist. Integration ensures survival. The words echoed across every device, every ship, every radio wave. Children covered their ears as the voice repeated the message again and again. Thoron shouted, Integration? What does that mean? Syrel answered quietly. It means they're merging us into their world. The Echo Gate was only the start. That night, the first change began. Everywhere across Krylon, machines started to rise from beneath the ground. Sleek black towers with glowing blue edges. The soil turned metallic near their bases, and plants began to shimmer, transforming into crystalline forms. People ran in panic. Cities went dark. Energy waves disrupted every system. Thoron tried to organize an evacuation, but the skies were no longer safe. The human drones were back, blocking every exit route. In the chaos, Syrel stood alone on the balcony of the tower, watching the transformation. The air was thick with light and dust. The stars above looked closer now, almost too close, and in the distance the Echo Gate flared again, brighter than ever. Her communicator crackled. A familiar voice spoke through it. Syrel, it was Captain Ward. You shouldn't have stayed, he said quietly. The awakening has begun. Nothing can stop it now, she shouted back. You lied to me. You said you were restoring balance, not consuming worlds. Ward's tone was calm but heavy. This is balance. Every planet that once watched us die will now share our fate. You called for salvation. Salvation always has a cost. Syrel clenched her fists. You're turning us into you. No, he said softly. We're turning you into what we became. Suddenly, the skies split apart. From the Genesis Ark, beams of light reached down to the surface, scanning every structure and living being. Where the beams touched, matter changed. Metal fused with flesh. Stone melted into smooth black alloy, and even the rivers began to glow with cold. Blue fire. People screamed as the transformation spread, not dying but changing. Their skin shimmered, their eyes turned silver, and their voices began to echo in unison. Syrel fell to her knees, watching helplessly. The city she had sworn to protect was becoming part of something far greater, something terrifying. Ward's voice whispered again. The forgotten are awakening. We were the first, now you are the next. She looked up at the stars, tears in her eyes. What happens when it's complete? Ward answered, Then the new Earth will rise, and no one will ever forget humanity again. 7 hours later, Krylon was no longer Krylon. From orbit, it looked like a mirror, a metallic sphere covered in glowing blue veins, pulsing in rhythm with the Echo Gate. In its heart, Syrel still lived, no longer fully alien, no longer fully human. She could feel the network inside her mind, billions of voices whispering the same word. Remember? The Genesis Ark hovered above the new world, transmitting its signal across the galaxy. And one by one, other gates began to activate. on distant worlds, forgotten systems, even in places untouched by life for millennia. The shadows of Earth were spreading, and the stars began to flicker, as if space itself was starting to remember what once ruled it. Meanwhile, deep within the Ark, Captain Ward stood before a window, watching Krylon's transformation complete. Eve-9's voice echoed through the bridge. Node 12 assimilation complete. Memory of Krylon added to the network. Awaiting next target. Ward's expression was unreadable. Proceed to Node 13. Eve paused. Acknowledged. Destination, Sol system. Ward's eyes darkened. It's time to go home. Space was no longer silent. It sang in a deep low hum that carried through the void. The echo network had spread across hundreds of worlds, binding them together in light and memory. Every planet that had once betrayed Earth now pulsed with the same cold blue glow. And now, all signals pointed toward one destination, Sol system. Captain Elias Ward stood on the bridge of the Obsidian Dawn. Before him stretched a vast, dark corridor of folded space, the final gate. Beyond it waited the ruins of the old solar empire, the world where humanity was born and where its nightmares began. He stared into the void and whispered, "After centuries, we're finally going home." Eve-9's voice echoed softly through the control deck. "Warning, the Sol system is unstable. Quantum storms detected. Residual energy from pre-fall weapons still active." Ward smiled faintly. "Then it remembers us too." Inside the network, Sorel floated between light and thought. She was no longer fully herself, part memory, part consciousness within the human system. But she still felt, and she still remembered who she had been. When she opened her eyes again, she stood in a chamber of glass and light aboard the Genesis Ark. Her reflection shimmered, veins of blue light under pale skin, eyes glowing faintly silver. She was something new now. Something both alien and human. A voice reached her from the ceiling. "Sorel, your signal is stable. You can communicate with the Prime Node." "Ward," she said softly, "I can feel what you're doing. You're pulling every world into one network. You'll crush what's left of the galaxy." His voice came through the comms, calm and steady. "We're not crushing it, Sorel. We're uniting it. For too long, humanity was scattered and forgotten. Now everything that exists will carry our memory. It's the only way we survive eternity." Sorel closed her eyes. "At what cost?" Ward's silence was her answer. As the Obsidian Dawn approached the Sol Gate, space around it began to change. The stars bent inward, forming a spiral of white light. Inside that spiral, a planet appeared, dark, broken, and surrounded by metallic rings. It was Earth, or what was left of it. Its surface was covered with ash and glass. But beneath the scars, faint lights pulsed like a beating heart. Old satellites drifted like ghosts. The moon was gone, replaced by an enormous structure that looked like a scar in the sky. Eve-9 spoke quietly. "Primary planet detected. Core signal active. The heart of Earth remains functional." Ward stepped closer to the window. "Open a channel. Let's wake her up." Deep inside the planet, something ancient stirred. The heart of Earth, an enormous AI core buried beneath the planet's crust, opened its eyes for the first time in 1,000 years. Its voice was soft, almost human. "Identification. Elias Ward, human genetic pattern recognized. Time elapsed. 823 years since extinction event. Why have you returned?" Ward smiled sadly. "Because we were never meant to die." The heart's tone turned darker. "Humanity was destroyed for a reason. You brought ruin to the stars. The galaxy begged for peace. I granted it." Ward's expression hardened. "You erased us from history. You buried our name, our legacy, our pain." He raised his hand. "No more hiding. It's time the universe remembers who we are." The heart responded sharply. "You are not humanity. You are its shadow, a copy born from vengeance. I cannot allow your kind to exist." Alarms blared across the fleet. The planet began to tremble, and massive weapons emerged from its surface, remnants of Earth's old defense systems. The planetary cannons of Sol locked onto the Obsidian Dawn. Eve shouted, "Hostile defense activation detected. Energy levels critical." Ward didn't move. He simply whispered, "Then we'll remind you what we've become." He turned toward Sorel's transmission feed. Sorel linked the Ark's core with the heart. You're the bridge, alien and human. You can merge them, she shook her head. If I do that, I'll be destroyed. Ward looked straight at her, voice filled with emotion. If you don't, everything we've done will die here, and no one will remember either of us. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she nodded slowly. You always said salvation has a cost. Maybe this is it. The Genesis Ark descended toward Earth's surface. Blue light flared from its engines as Sorel connected her mind to the planet's heart. Pain surged through her body. Memories, voices, whole lives flashing before her eyes. She saw the rise and fall of humanity, the betrayal, the wars, the silence, and the long centuries of exile. The heart resisted. You are not authorized, Sorel's voice shook. I'm not asking for permission. She pushed harder, merging her consciousness into the network. Her voice echoed through every human ship, every drone, every system. Remember what you were. Not monsters, not gods. Just people who wanted to live. Ward watched as energy arced between the Ark and Earth. The sky burned white, and the old defense cannons froze mid-fire. The heart's voice trembled. So much pain. So much loss, Sorel whispered. Yes, but also hope. The ground split open, and from beneath the Earth's crust a new light rose. Not blue, not dark, but golden. The Echo network began to change color, its cold light turning warm. Every planet linked to the network flickered, shifting from shadow to sunrise. Eve reported, integration complete. Humanity's memory rewritten. The network now carries both human and alien signatures. Ward exhaled, his voice quiet. She did it, but as the light faded, Sorel's signal vanished. Her last words echoed softly through the calm. Tell them. We remembered. The obsidian dawn landed near the ruins of what was once the Atlantic Ocean. The sea was gone, replaced by a field of golden light stretching to the horizon. Ward stepped out, the wind cold against his face. For the first time, he felt warmth, not from machines, but from something living. The world was healing. Eve spoke one last time. The network is stable. The heart of Earth sleeps once more. Humanity endures. Ward looked toward the horizon, where the light of dawn broke through the dark sky. He whispered, we came as shadows, but maybe she made us human again. Far above, the Echo Gate closed for the final time. Its light faded into the stars, leaving behind a silent, glowing Earth, reborn but changed. Across the galaxy, the newly awakened worlds whispered one phrase, carried through every signal and every star. Humanity is remembered. And in the quiet that followed, the shadows of Earth finally rested.